Imagine a line of megaships, each longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall, waiting to pass a man-made gap in the map. Every hour of delay burns fuel, idles crews, and ties up containers that factories were counting on yesterday. A single stuck vessel can cascade into higher shipping costs, empty shelves, and price spikes for everything from electronics to food. This isn't rare bad luck. It's baked into how we optimized global trade around a few extremely efficient shortcuts. Canals solve geography's biggest tax: time. Sailing around Africa adds roughly 10 to 14 days to Asia-Europe routes. A canal shrinks distance by thousands of kilometers, saving fuel and charter costs and squeezing more trips into each ship's calendar year. That time compression is why a narrow waterway became a trillion-dollar valve, because when you multiply a few days saved by tens of thousands of transits and millions of containers, the canal becomes a central clock for global logistics. But here's the catch: ships ballooned faster than canals. Container vessels grew wider and deeper to chase economies of scale. More boxes per trip lowers cost per unit. Yet canals have fixed widths, depths, crosswinds, and currents. A vessel's huge side profile acts like a sail. Bank effect can pull a ship's stern toward the shore. Draft and beam leave razor-thin margins. In other words, bigger ships magnify small errors. What used to be a tricky passage becomes a high-stakes threading of the needle, where a gust of wind or a momentary loss of steering can halt world trade. It's not just pilots and physics. Nature dictates capacity. Drought can lower reservoirs feeding lock systems, forcing canals to limit ship size or cut daily transit slots. Sediment can shift channels. Seasonal winds can push ships offline. Even a small reduction in allowable draft or daily passages compounds into queues, and queues don't grow linearly. They explode. If a canal cuts throughput by, say, 20%, waiting time can vault far beyond 20% because ships keep arriving while fewer pass. Now zoom out to the money. When ships wait, charter rates rise. Carriers add congestion surcharges. Insurers reprice risk. Fuel burn goes up as vessels race to make up time. Ports downstream miss their windows, creating yard pileups and chassis shortages. The result shows up in freight indices and eventually in consumer prices. Even if you're nowhere near a port, higher logistics costs ripple into everything with the supply chain. Economists call this pass-through, and for traded goods, it can be surprisingly fast. So why not bypass the canal? You can by sailing around the Cape of Good Hope or using alternative straits, but detours add thousands of kilometers, more fuel, higher emissions, and weeks of delay. Rail land bridges can help in specific corridors, but they have limited capacity and interchange friction. Transshipment hubs can resort boxes, yet each handoff risks damage, delay, and cost. Arctic routes, they're seasonal and come with ice, insurance, and infrastructure challenges. The truth is that alternatives exist, but none match the canal's year-round speed and volume for mainstream routes. To keep the artery flowing, canal authorities dredge, widen, and add passing lanes where possible. They tweak tolls and time slots, sometimes auctioning priority. Pilots rely on tugs, better sensors, and highly choreographed convoys. Carriers, for their part, slow steam to save fuel, reorganize schedules, and sometimes deploy smaller ships to fit restrictions. The industry also experiments with digital twins and AI-assisted navigation to anticipate wind, current, and traffic, shaving risk at the margins where it matters most. Even when everything looks smooth, the system carries fragility costs. Inventories are leaner to save money, which means there's less buffer when a canal hiccups. Warehouses and retailers now price in the probability of disruption, holding extra stock or paying for faster modes like air when schedules slip. These buffers are insurance policies we pay invisibly at checkout. A canal's reliability is quietly embedded in your receipt. What would real resilience look like? First, pricing that mirrors risk, dynamic tolls and slot auctions that reflect demand, weather, and vessel size. Second, fleet right-sizing in sensitive seasons, slightly smaller beams and drafts to trade a little efficiency for a lot more safety. Third, diversified routes with realistic expectations, rail for time-critical goods, sea detours for low-value bulk, and strategic stockpiles for essential inputs. Finally, better transparency, public, real-time congestion and capacity dashboards so shippers can reroute before queues metastasize. This tiny canal is a reminder that globalization runs on bottlenecks, chips from one island, cables on one seabed, and a single waterway threading continents together. We can't remove geography, but we can price risk, design smarter ships, and build just enough slack into a system that's been optimized to the edge. If you want more map-driven breakdowns like this, hit subscribe. Tell me which choke point you want next, the Strait of Hormuz, Malacca, or the Arctic, because the most important parts of the world economy are often the narrowest.